politicians and bureaucrats, architects and environmentalists, lawyers and trade unionists, besides builders and developers, for differing reasons and motives, of course.
Now, of the population of Bombay, almost about 55% are people living in the slums. And this problem was not given adequate attention in the past. And for the first time, new provisions have been made under the Development Control Regulation.
Now, if everybody wants to live in Bombay, you see, there's no way, you see, we can have that type of land available there. Then we say that the land is too short. So we say, okay, everybody should start living in flats, or we sort of want to have very dense settlements. And poor people who cannot afford land, or who do not have access to land, which becomes very expensive, then they are pushed into squatter settlements. Now, as a matter of fact, we recognize that you see, slums really are not in a problem in that way, but it's a solution, you see, where people have found a shelter solution for themselves.
Call it problem or solution. Slums haunt even the nation's capital, New Delhi, otherwise a showplace to the world. Inevitably, the housing debate begins here.
Yet another dimension of the problem is the unprecedented growth of the urban centers, leading to congestion, rise in land values, and degradation in human values as the poor in large numbers live in subhuman conditions. What is needed is a balanced, non-exploitative pattern of development in which the people in the backward areas and the poor in other areas share the fruits of economic growth.
Low-cost housing and alternative technologies are the buzzwords here.
Special attention is given to re-establish mud as a legitimate building material.
Not all experts agree.
Well, frankly, I don't think mud has any major relevance for mass housing, because we tend to have a very romantic notion of using mud. If you look around, you'll see that most of the institutions that are involved in doing research in mud haven't really built substantially to make mud a sort of relevant low-cost material. I have used the material, but more again out of these romantic notions that architects have that everyone ought to live in mud. We really ought to start from the top level down. If the Prime Minister promotes a certain housing idea, then the first person on which it ought to be tried is the Prime Minister himself. Or if HUDCO pushes a certain idea, I think the chairman of HUDCO ought to be also part of that scheme.
Even an expert on alternative technologies concedes.
But one realizes at the end of it that one can cut down 30% on the cost of construction, which is really chicken feed compared to the land price. So first thing one has got to look into, apart from low-cost housing, you've got to look into low-cost land. And the main problem in land cost having spiraled the way it has is primarily to landowning agencies or the government agencies getting into business, which they had no business to be in.
Indeed, when it comes to the business of land, the government shows remarkable enterprise.
In Delhi, for instance, the state itself is the criminal. You have the Delhi Development Authority, which is supposed to be responsible for housing and so on and so forth. What they are doing is they're acquiring land from the farmers at, let's say, a rupee a unit, and then selling it at 500 rupees or 700 rupees a unit.
Paradoxically, the Janta government of Mr. Fernandes could not implement its own legislation, nor could subsequent governments.
Government's own records show that the government has approximately 2,000 hectares or 5,000 acres of land available for housing the poor. Under the Urban Land Ceiling Act 1976, government was empowered to take this land at a rupee a square foot, and this land could have been given to slum dwellers at a rupee a square foot. Now, will the government give this land to slum dwellers? Will the government implement the Urban Land Ceiling Act 1976? Government says today that it intends to scrap the Urban Land Ceiling Act, that it does not intend to give any land to slum dwellers, and this land which it can give at ₹1 a square foot, it is going to sell on the black market, on the open market, for ₹1,000 a square foot to private builders.
Today, vested interests find increasing support among people in power to scrap the Urban Land Ceiling Act altogether. Meanwhile, the pressure on existing land, especially in slums, takes new dimensions.
आज सवेरे हम लोगों ने देखा कि एक पोपटलाल बिल्डर, ऐसे हम सुनते हैं कुराड़ विलेज से, वो देख रहा है कि ये ज़मीन बहुत अच्छी है दुकान लाइन डालने के लिए, तो हम यहाँ दुकान लाइन डालेंगे। 10-12 टपोरी लोग जमा किए, 10-10 हज़ार रुपये दे दिया उनको, बीएमसी में पैसे दे दिए, पुलिस स्टेशन में पैसे दे दिए, चलो हम बांधेंगे, ज़बरदस्ती बांध दी। फिर यूनिटी संघर्ष, चलो सब लोग जमा हो जाओ। बीएमसी ने लिखित दे दिया हम लोगों को कि हम इसको छूने वाले नहीं हैं, हमारे जोन में नहीं आता है, हम इसको तोड़ेंगे नहीं, अपना सुरक्षा आप लोग ही करो। तो फिर ये लेटर सब पब्लिक को दिखाए कि ऐसी ऐसी बात है, बीएमसी आपको सुरक्षा नहीं देने वाला है।
There are other, more subtle forms of land grab.
Foreshore Cooperative Housing Society is a society of which members are exclusively members of the High Court of Bombay or the Supreme Court. They have been given this land, which had been reserved for housing the dishoused, at a nominal rate of lease rent of 6.5% of a market rate of 1,050 per meter, which means the land has been given virtually free. In this particular case, the judges went and begged for concession from the chief ministers like Kandule and Sharad Pawar, who were generous enough to oblige them and give them land which had been reserved for housing the dishoused.
Even in death, some people are more equal than others.
In Delhi, the dead have more land than the living. You are creating a massive graveyard in Delhi for the rich, for the rulers. Nothing could be more obscene.
Contrast this with the plight of the living and our increasing insensitivity.
We have the famous Olga Tellis case in the Supreme Court, where it was argued before Supreme Court by the Government Council. They said, you know, my lord, today these slum dwellers are in the slums. Tomorrow they'll come onto the pavements and the streets, and the next day they'll be squatting here in the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court held in Olga Tellis' case that the right of the middle-class person to walk on the pavement and presumably walk his dog on the pavement is a far superior right than the right of a pavement dweller to live on the pavement.
Pavements are meant for walking, but do the poor really have a choice?
हमारा नाम सुभाष परशुराम पवार है। हम सोलापुर जिला से आए। इस बॉम्बे में आकर करीब 20 साल हो गए हमको। 4 दिन यहाँ निकालो, 4 दिन वहाँ निकालो, 4 दिन वहाँ निकालो, ऐसे निकालते 20 बरस हमको गुजर गया है। हम आए, हमारे मुल्क में दुष्काल पड़ गया है। वहाँ कोई मजूरी नहीं है, हमारा कोई खेती बाड़ी नहीं है। मजूरी 4-5 रुपये में हमारा पेट भर नहीं सकता है।
गावामध्ये काय आम्हाला शेत नाही ना, बाडी नाही, आम्ही नुसते राहणार वरच्यावर। तिथनं मग तसं करता करता तिथं इथं जर नोकर लागली तर आम्ही इथं राहू, मुलकाला जर आमची सुई लागली तर आम्ही मुलकाला राहायची आमची तयारी आहे।
लोलपरीला काय दिवस काढले, काय दिवस बांद्र्याला काढले, काय दिवस माहीमला काढले, काय दिवस दादरला काढले, आणि शेवटला आम्ही इथं आलो। बाहेर गावाला जागा हाय, पण तिथे गेल्यानंतर काय करते तिकडले लीडर लोक पैसे मागतात आमच्याजवळ। 2,000-3,000 पैसे मागतात। आमच्याजवळ तर दाट टोकरायला पैसा नाही, आणि आम्ही 2,000 आणि 3,000 रुपये द्यायचे कुठून?
The fact is that the city of Bombay needs its pavement and slum dwellers. Dharavi, Asia's largest slum, is an island of small industry. Not only does it contribute to the city of Bombay, it earns valuable foreign exchange as well. Yet the authorities continuously unleash their might on the hapless slum dweller. But when it comes to unauthorized construction by the rich, the same authorities look the other way. Slum dwellers, however, are now fighting for their rights.
एक हाथ से डिमोलिशन चालू थी, एक हाथ से सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने भी हमारे हक नाकार दिए थे, और इसके वजह से एक हम लोगों ने निर्णय ये ले लिया कि यहाँ पे अगर हम लोग हार गए तो फिर ऊपर उठना निवारा हक सुरक्षा समिति को मुश्किल होगा, और यहाँ पे जीते तो शायद सभी झोपड़पट्टियों को एक स्फूर्ति मिलेगी।
हमारे साथी और हम साथ में बैठे और भूख हड़ताल हमने उसकी शुरुआत की। उसके दूसरे दिन फिर शबाना आज़मी ने भी साथ हमारा दिया, वो भी आके बैठ गई भूख हड़ताल के लिए, और 4 दिन के बाद हम लोग कामयाब हो गए। सरकार ने भूख हड़ताल को वापस लेने का ये किया कि आप भूख हड़ताल वापस दीजिए, हम दूसरी पर्यायी जगह आपको दिलवा देंगे।
It came as a complete surprise that we could actually achieve results, you know, because I mean at a point the government's stance was so hard and they were saying that there is no land available, so how are you going to make it available? And then at 3 o'clock in the afternoon they realized on a Friday that on Saturday and Sunday because the newspapers were paying it enough attention, and on Saturday and Sunday it was going to be carried in all the papers, and so they ought to do something for it. And hey presto, within 15 minutes this land was available. So it came as a surprise, and it also brought in a great spirit of optimism that we struggled and we achieved results.
लेकिन आगे गवर्नमेंट ने कुछ भी मदद देने के बारे में नहीं सोच रहे, कि मतलब इसलिए है कि ये ऐसे हमें आगे कुछ करना है तो आगे संघर्ष लड़ना ही पड़ेगा।
मगर हमारे लिए ये प्रेसिडेंट है, और हम ये लोगों को कहते हैं कि ये जैसे हमने संघर्ष करके ये जगह जीती है, वैसे जो भी संघर्ष करेगा ये एक ही तरीका है कि आप लड़ो अपने हक के लिए, फिर ही कुछ मिलेगा। ऐसे चुपचाप बैठने से कुछ मुंबई में मिलने वाला नहीं है।
अभी हम लोग नहीं करते थे, कुछ जगह नहीं देते थे, तो वहीं पे रहना भी मुश्किल कर देते हैं हम लोग को।
अभी इधर आने के बाद मैंने किसी की क्या लगता है, हमारा घर तो अपने को मिला, तो क्या है हमको और आगे संघर्ष करने की क्या जरूरत है, यही सोच रहे। तो मुझे नहीं लगता ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए। जरूरत पड़ता तो हमारा अपने बस्ती के लिए संघर्ष करना चाहिए, जब हमको मदद किए लेना इसी तरह से दूसरा बस्ती के लिए अपन संघर्ष करना जरूरी है।
In the 80s, major World Bank and Prime Minister's grant projects were announced for slum Bombay, amidst the usual fanfare.
The 100 crores of rupees which Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, when he was the Prime Minister, allocated for Bombay's development, some plans were made by the then state government. The PMGP has done excellent work in urban renewal. They have done some good work in Dharavi also. But there is definitely some scope for improvement in all that.
Of course, under the given system, we can't expect completely clean things to come out. There is an element of malpractice, there is an element of even from society side, slum people side, as well as bureaucratic system is so bad. Our Prime Minister's grant project, it has nothing but a political gimmick. It doesn't solve problem with 100 crores.
Now what has happened, what is getting implemented is strictly a governmental housing with a government financing. The money comes from PMGP, they get it from HUDCO, the contract is awarded by PMGP, the people's participation is not there at all. This is a reality. As far as the approach is concerned, as a planner is concerned, or as an architect is concerned, I think they are utter failure.
The PMGP government-sponsored scheme itself, completely inbuilt scheme to throw people out from Dharavi so that these people can create one more Dharavi, thereby government create one more PMGP, continue to exist, plus people will be thrown out continually out of their own resistance, out of their survival also. This is the strategy of government.
While vested interests squabble over the spoils of a mega project, a new set of rules with far-reaching consequences have just been announced.
Trust is something like this. The government and public authorities have tried to improve slums in the past through various schemes, but they could only scratch the surface. The most important problem is the finance. The amount required to construct 11 lakh tenements is about 5,930 crores of rupees. Now, firstly, forget about the government trying to put in this type of money because it's not there. Two, is this type of money available even in the economy as a whole? Even that is doubtful. So realizing this, for the first time we thought we must bring in the private sector very much into this.
I am of the opinion the privatization or private thing is going to be a best solution.
I feel that they are very progressive and they will help the city tremendously. But I feel that they should have been much, much more liberalized.
Suddenly, the builder has acquired new respectability.
We have always been, criticizing a builder. Okay, yes, in each and every field, in each and every community, in each and every caste, creed, everything, there are some black sheeps, okay? We're not talking about that. But considering that every time the person feels that, oh, a builder makes so much of profit, yes, I would say, why not? He has to make profit. He is investing a hell of a lot of money.
Basically raised by people who are not very knowledgeable, is that the builders are going to make a big packet out of this.
Question is, the builder before those people and builder before we people, or before me, a lot of difference. There, my builder is not going to have any profit. No profit. Their builders are like sharks.
Meet one of India's most successful builders.
Generally, the private builders are clubbed for development of houses for the affluent only. But it is not a correct position because now the times have changed.
Where's that?
This is like a train coming.
You didn't expect that.
We took care of that.
It is quite true when you say that normally private sector is recognized for making houses for the affluent and for the rich people. But now the trend has changed. And there are developers who are developing houses for the poor and for the masses. And the change is that private initiative, private corporate sector can also be motivated to develop houses for the economically weaker section. Not only houses, even sites and services. Why should the government alone take upon itself the responsibility? Why can't they also involve the private sector to do this? And they're willing to do it.
The real responsibility, of course, lies with the chief actor on the stage, and that's government. It's not the developers. Developers don't create demand. They are just panderers to demand.
Opposition is mounting against international and domestic pressure to privatize.
First of all, it means that the 40-year-old policy of government to provide housing to the poor, cheap or free of charge, is being jettisoned. It means now, for the first time, builders will enter slums, builders will make houses, and those houses will be made principally for the upper classes. Government is now saying that poor people will no longer get any money for housing from government or government agencies. That's the first thing. The second, and this is more disturbing, is that whereas earlier government used to enter slums and bulldoze slums, now the government is going to allow private builders to enter slums. They will start building in slums. They will bring their private armies in, their private gunda gangs in, and these gangs will, by a combination of persuasion and force, push the slum dwellers out and build in the places of slums high-rise apartments.
We should not forget that the state itself is owned by the private chap today. And he is utilizing the state in whatever way possible, in his own style, for his own purpose. Just now, of course, the catchword is privatization. And in the next 6 months to 1 year, if we do not roll back this whole IMF, World Bank and privatization fraud that is being perpetrated on India, then you could as well say that we are back to the company days.
An offspring of privatization is a new set of development control rules with increased FSI on slum lands as a bonus.
The government had a statutory duty to lay the new DC rules before the Legislative Assembly, but it was not done. The representatives of the people were not given an opportunity to discuss it, debate it, and to pass it. It was done in a very undemocratic way. One of the important features of the new DC rules is that it raises FSI in slum areas from 1.33 or 1 to an FSI of 2.5. The developer who develops the slum gets a surplus of 1.5 because he normally needs an FSI of 1 to accommodate all the people who already stay there. This means making a profit of about 400%, because the cost of construction today may be about 300 rupees, while the market price is about 1200 rupees.
The new DC rules represent a real estate bonanza for mill owners in Bombay, while directly affecting the very existence of over 3 lakh textile workers and their families.
बम्बई शहर में जो नया विकास नियंत्रण कायदा जो बनाया है वो मिलों के लिए यानी मुंबई शहर के बाहर लेके जाता है और मिल मजदूरों को बर्बाद करने वाला ये नियम है।
मुंबई शहरात मालिक लोकांनी मोठमोठ्या जमिनी मिलच्या जमिनी विकण्यासाठी एक मोठी मोहीम आखली आहे आणि ह्याच्यात हा लढाई मुख्यतः कामगाराला मोठ्या उमेदीने द्यावा लागणार आहे, कारण हा लढाई एका पगाराचा किंवा बोनसवाढीचा लढा नाही, तो अस्तित्वाचा लड़ा है।
आज जो है सरकार खुलम खुला ये डीसी रूल के नाम पर ज़मीन बेचने का जो खुलेआम उन्होंने उनका परमिशन दे दिया है, उससे ये हो रहा है कि मिल के अलावा पूरा मजदूरों का बस्ती भी उद्ध्वस्त करने का इरादा है उनको।
The increase in slum FSI has sparked off debate among professionals too.
This FSI increase is the main plank I have been fighting with the government last 8 years. And additional FSI is required to create a cross subsidy.
Give that area an additional FSI so that you give them such an additional FSI that he can make a real good building. He doesn't make another sort of a slum, which is the main thing which is happening in a lot of these areas like Dharavi. Ground and 1 upper structure is been replaced by ground and 6 upper structure. You make it so liberalized that you have nice towers of 20 stories high or 25 stories high.
This whole idea of putting them into high-rise buildings, to my mind, is absolutely crazy unless you have a great subsidy per family. I think that even goes for a 4 or 5 story building, forget about a 20-story one. We're going to invest more and more money over here, and it's going to take us further and further into high-rise and very expensive solutions, and therefore further and further away for doing anything real about the poor. Any solution which improves the buildings at the cost of lowering the standard of amenities is going to be counterproductive as far as amenities go.
They keep saying that higher FSI will accommodate more people. This is totally wrong, because what about the amenities? FSI is not just a numbers game. FSI is a tool of design, it's a tool of planning to regulate the number of people that live in a particular area, having regard to the services that you can provide them. Is it the intention that you just house these people like rats in a cage, or do you want them to have schools, open spaces, fire brigade stations, you name it, the whole range of civic amenities?
There can't be hard and fast rules, really. And if every city in the world can cope with high-rise buildings in the sense 20 floors and all that, I don't know why we should feel so shy of this.
May I react to this? We are against high-rise buildings. The trend the world over, incidentally, is against high-rise buildings. Number 2, let us remember that high-rise buildings are by and large much more costly than low-rise buildings. Number 3, they are much more energy intensive. In a world that is crying out for energy, these are 3 strikes against high-rise buildings. However, one sees the point that the higher you go, the more open spaces you can get. But let me take you to some high-rise areas of Cuff Parade, Nariman Point, and I would be very grateful if you showed me some open spaces which have been kept.
The debate over high-rise, FSI and alternative technologies are all very fine. But are our design solutions truly relevant and humane?
At the moment, our objective is to provide a comprehensive shelter. If the man wants, he can introduce a window. Let him introduce the window as he likes. There would be separate articulation by that. Somebody would provide a big window, somebody a smaller window, somebody would provide an arch. Let that be his own expression.
इसमें गुजारा नहीं है, इसमें तो रोज थाने पुलिस होगा जी। अब देखो दिनों दिनों अब जिसके बच्चा है तो वो बड़े होएंगे, छोटा तो नहीं होगे जो पहले बताओ, तो उसमें गुजारा नहीं है। अब बहुत छोटा है, ये तो बहू कहाँ रहेगे, बेटा कहाँ रहेगा, बेटा के बच्चा उच्चा होगा वो कहाँ रहेगा, अब बूढ़ा बूढ़ी कहाँ रहेगा। इससे तो ठीक है झुग्गी, इससे झुग्गी सही है। तो चलो अपन बाहर तो सो जाते हैं, रोटी खाया मैदान में बाहर सो गया, इधर रोड पर सो गया।
ये स्लम के डायरेक्टर जो इनको बनाया, ये झुग्गी वालों को पसंद नहीं, क्योंकि झुग्गी से ज्यादा कंजस्टेड ये है। इसमें किसी तरह का हवा नहीं, ना तो बाहर बैठने की जगह है, हमेशा आप अंदर ही बंद रहिए, कैद रहिए। चिड़ियाघर के कबूतर भी ऐसी जगह में नहीं रहता, वो भी हवादार फ्लैट में घुसता है।
Well, we are very close to the areas laid down by the UN. The UN says that you have to give, I mean, it was worked out that you have to give about 25 square meters for a family unit. But the law was that they're allowed to only build 75%, which is 18 square meters. What we've given is 15 square meters is the livable space. The toilet is common, so if you take all that, it's about 17 square meters per family unit. Now, this entire exercise is being done on the assumption that all the people that live in this camp have to be housed as is where is, and the density happens to be 630 dwelling units per hectare. So how can I adopt the UN norms? I have a problem to sort, not norms to meet.
Just as food and health is an important personal requirement, shelter also is a requirement. And of course, even though we find that all the socialist systems are crumbling, in one area the socialist system had definitely scored as far as housing is concerned, because their planning in public housing or social housing was need-based. And they tried to provide housing. For example, as the family grew, the person got a bigger and bigger accommodation. Whereas what we are trying to do is, because of the financial limitations, we are shrinking standards. At one time, we were thinking that 360 square feet was the minimum dwelling size. Now, when we couldn't provide 360 feet square, we brought it down to 200. Now we are talking of 180, or it may be 100. Now, that's no way of solving people's problem.
Is there then another way to solve this complex problem?
Actually, I must tell you that though I hate that agency here, my own personal opinion is that housing is an individual subject. Housing cannot become a government or semi-government activity even.
Perhaps this is one of the mistakes we made in this country, by the government trying to do everything, including manufacturing bread and manufacturing condoms, manufacturing you say what?
If I was in the government making laws, yes, then I can assure you that I can change this city in a matter of 4 years into one of the most beautiful cities of the world. Or I can at least lay the groundwork to make into one of the most beautiful cities in the world.
With my program, I think I will be giving free housing to 40 lakhs of people living in hutments.
I am against giving free houses, which some people are talking about. I am totally against that, because it is that again that private enterprise, it is a part of that privatization.
I have been criticized by a good many people about this permit system and all that. What about the people coming from other parts of the states? That is also equally important. Even in Russia, there is a permit system. You see, a Bandra man, when he comes to Dadar, actually his name is written, his address is written. He's been asked where you are going to put up, how many days, and immediately they will check up whether the man has gone back or not. That's in Russia, but the communists here, they criticize my scheme. Oh, we are Indians. I say, yes, we are Indians, but not Anglo-Indians.
In contrast, more down-to-earth housing efforts have been made by people themselves, with mixed results.
This particular effort is a mutual self-help. In fact, in every slum, you will find people build their own house. So there is a self-help, but there is not a mutual self-help. that is by bringing community together. It is not necessary that your house should be built by the professional builder. What happens? The financing agency gives the loan when it is built by professional builder. Municipal authority gives the sanction when the plan is prepared by the professional designer. You see, for designing a simple house, you don't need an architect. If we give a site and services with a common facilities, the land will be within the reach of the people.
I think many such projects can be taken up with the help of professional people who are willing to give their time and willing to contribute by way of this kind of service. They would be very happy to take advantage of such schemes, and the housing situation can be improved to a certain extent. Of course, it's no solution.
Born out of struggle and sacrifice, however, another slum continues its efforts undeterred.
यानी हम अलग-अलग परिस्थिति होगी तो भी हमारे पैसे की परिस्थिति भी अलग होगी तो भी हम लोग इकट्ठा रहेंगे और जैसे भी हम लोग चाहते हैं आगे अपना घर अच्छा और अच्छा बनाते रहेंगे।
मगर हम लोग झोपड़ा बनावे तो एक सरीका हम लोग चाहिए, पानी जैसा हम लोग आज तक संघर्ष किया है, पानी के बारे में, लाइट के बारे में, ऐसा सब एक मिल के हम लोग ऐसा रहेगा तो हम चलेगा।
अगर कोई कमजोर है या वो है और 4 आदमी उसको उठा सकते हैं तो थोड़ा उठा के अपने लेवल में लेंगे, उसे गिरने तो नहीं देंगे। बस ये है कि हर आदमी का एक जैसा बिल्कुल घर हो और सब लोगों को जल्दी से जल्दी आराम मिले।
हम लोग जो है वो आपका निर्णय लेके ये करेंगे,
ये प्लान बनाएंगे, लेकिन ये प्लान का मुख्य अंश यही था कि एक एक घर अलग बनेंगे, मतलब अलग प्लॉट जैसे बनेंगे, हर एक घर के साथ एक खुला जगह रहेगा और चारों घर के बीच में 2 संडास और 2 नल अभी दिया जाएगा, जो भविष्य में 4 भी किया जा सकता है। मतलब ये कम से कम इतना प्लान लेकर आज हम इस बस्ती का सुधार या घर का प्रोग्राम शुरू कर सकते हैं।
Can any meaningful change take place without recognizing the very right to housing?
I believe that just as education is one of my rights, just as the right to life is there, the right to live is there, if I don't have a house, and if you do not concede my right to a house, in other words, if you create conditions in which I cannot have a house, then my right to live also is questioned. If housing is my fundamental right, then my fundamental right cannot be a matter of profiteering for somebody else. So therefore, the state has to intervene. The public bodies like the municipal corporation have to intervene, and you need to go in for a wholly new kind of legislation for this purpose. This has to become a major movement in the country. Housing as a fundamental right and a struggle to make housing a fundamental right.
The perception of the slum dweller as the scum of the earth must change. I am not going to accept that because he is poor, he has less a right to live than you and me. And it's apartheid of the worst kind. It's the same kind of argument that says that a white has a greater right to live than a black, or that a man has more right to live than a woman. And it is a violation of human rights, and it cannot be accepted. The real solution then depends on the people's own struggle and sacrifice.
दोस्तों, एक जिगर की बात है, हम लोगों को ये लड़ाई लड़नी है। मंजिल अभी भी दूर है, ज़्यादा दूर नहीं लेकिन दूर है। हम लोगों को एक बहुत अच्छी सोसाइटी, मजबूत सोसाइटी बनानी है। हम लोगों को अपने पैरों पे खड़ा होना पड़ेगा। हमें मालूम है कि हमारे अंदर भी कुछ कीड़े मकोड़े हैं और इनको हम छोड़ेंगे नहीं। यहाँ पे सब लोगों को शपथ लेना चाहिए।